Okay, let me tell you about the things that we did last year since the last Meetup in the Dutch. My name is Diederik Dulfer. We work already quite some time with MPS, and I will tell you today what projects, or from a few projects I will tell you some details. So what I tell you? I will tell you very shortly something about the Dutch Tax Office, but I think that most of you know or have some imagination about what it is. I have some story about the similarities between writing legislation and writing code. I tell you something about the history, about what happened in the Dutch tax department and how we ended up with MPS at this point of time. The projects that we are running, and I will take two, in which I will demo here a very small part of it to show you what is in there. And one is corporation tax. And the other one is what we call wage tax or wage tax tables. So the Dutch tax department is more than only tax. We do also customs. We do also benefits. And today I will tell you something about our project around income tax, which is of course for the citizens. We have a department for the big businesses, the big corporations. That is of course where I will talk about corporation tax. And for wage tax, it is all about the software developers that we provide specifications for, and these tables are also provided for the software developers, so it's outside our organization, but there is somewhere a department which is delivering all these specifications to the software developers. To start with, I have a small video, and this video is from Steve Jobs. It's a very old, it's very a long time ago, 1995, and he is talking about computers, and let's hear what he has to say. Oscar, is the volume on?
Where is the sound? Yeah, the sound. Wow.
No.
Anything?
Let's go there.
But much more importantly, it had nothing to do with using them for anything practical. It had to do with using them to be a mirror of your thought process, to actually learn how to think. Whereas I think the greatest value of learning how to, I think everybody in this country should learn how to program a computer, should learn a computer language, because it teaches you how to think. It's like going to law school. I don't think anybody should be a lawyer, but I think going to law school would actually be useful because it teaches you how to think in a certain way. In the same way that computer programming teaches you in a slightly different way how to think.
I was very surprised when I saw this. I mean, it's almost 25 years ago, and he already knew what we had to do at this time. And I could never imagine that he is so much true. One of the things that I discovered in the last years is that for me, when I read legislation, legislation is for me full of trees. And what do I mean with trees? Of course, you see the physical structure often in documents with chapters and articles and things like that. But you see also other tree structures in it, because this text very precisely address a certain goal, and all words are directed towards that goal. And you see that in the top of those trees, you clearly identify the goals and the rights and duties, mostly that citizens can derive from this text. And for that, it looks, of course, very similar to MPS, because when we have our rules in MPS and we open the Explorer, you see the tree structure in the Explorer, and it's almost the same as when you read and see the structures in the text in the legislation. And of course that's not strange, because when we do programming, we make abstractions of the real world and address that in code. And that's exactly the same what writers of legislation do. They look at the world, they make abstractions, and they write that down. So that's very, very similar. Okay, to go further to what we have done in the past years with this complete program, which I call it. Somewhere in 2015, I think, is it? 14. Sorry? 14. Okay, in 2014, we started using MPS at the Dutch Tax Office in the area of the benefits department. And then later on, we did several proof of concepts with the idea that we make rules in natural language, which we transform to our rule engine, which is called Lex. And these proof of concepts were that successful that finally our management said, okay, do it for one of our biggest taxes, which is income tax. So we just went live after the last meetup in München. In July 2018, we went live with a service for income tax, which is completely generated out of the specifications which we added in JetBrains MPS. So that's quite an achievement for us. Since that time, one of our colleagues also made a dissertation. She got her PhD on this process, how we come from legislation towards implemented IT. And it's very nice to see that in this book, she's a legal specialist, that she writes about us and about that we are using MPS in this process. And just a month ago, I think, we also went live for the project around wage tax. So we have currently two. We went live for 2 taxes. Like I told you, last year, July 2018, we went live for income tax. And we did it very, very carefully. Yeah? So we had, I think, 2 almost 3 years of preparation to make sure nothing went wrong. Then in July we went even still live in a very small area, only a few 100,000 calculations in a few months. And then it gradually got bigger and bigger. And to give you some idea about where we are now, for this year we did the actual calculation of the income tax of all citizens. So that's quite nice. Last year 11 million calculations and now 13 million calculations. And this is the one who made this PhD. So she wrote a book about how you come from legislation to implementation in systems. And she also wrote about JetBrains MPS, how we apply that. So that's quite nice to see that in a non-IT environment they are talking about us.
So it was not an IT PhD.
It was not an IT
cool.
PhD, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So just to go back to why we are doing this, we are all doing this because our job in the tax department is to implement legislation. And our main problem at this moment is that this legislation is translated into different specification documents for each application that we make. So legislation is implemented several times and the specifications are created in different ways, and of course it's in Word and in Excel and things like that. And of course when implementing it once, it's not a problem, but the point is that every year it changes and you have to make sure that you know which specification and where it needs to be changed. So we actually said we should have some process to come from legislation and all kinds of other internal policies to our rule language, which we call RuleSpraak. And that RuleSpraak is a natural Dutch language which can also be read by our legal specialists. And of course we had this vision at the moment we started with the income tax and we had some idea that this is true. But in the income tax we just in the project of the income tax, we just took the current specifications and transformed it to RuleSpraak. But now in the new projects, so like corporation tax and like the wage tax tables, we really are joining with legal specialists from, for instance, this department for the large corporations. And we are sitting together at the table and we are together creating those rules. And it's really true. They understand. They can help us with defining the rules. Actually, they are much better, of course, in defining the rules because we are just IT guys who help them understand. But the most important thing, I think, is that next to this specification we have examples and test cases. So we really ask this legal specialist, please give us examples about what you think should be the outcome of this. So they provide us with that, and then we can really test our specifications, test our language, and then again at that table we can discuss, is the rule correct? Or is the test case that you provided wrong? And well, sometimes it's the one and the other. So the key in this process of creating that specifications is that we do it together. Legal specialists have a hard time still in using MPS. I think it will take several years before they ever will do it. But we can help them with that, but they can help us.
Why is it they struggle with the editor, or the fact that you force them to be formal? I mean, what is the reason?
I think I think it is one of the problems. The other problem is I think that they just lose.
Yeah, but when you say years, that sounds like very long time.
Yeah, because they are never trained, never used to using computers. Never. Yeah, maybe that will happen, but I mean that's not. That's not so easy when you're in a company of 3,000 employees and we are IT and they do the real job. And of course they have real customers and real businesses which they need to go to. So this is just a side thing for them, creating IT. So it's not their job. Yeah. They think it's not their job.
Are the specialists people that write the laws?
No. No, the people who write the laws are outside the tax office.
Is there any kind of feedback process to the writers of the laws or interaction? Or
Not yet. No. Sometimes, but it's the line is very. There are two reasons for that. I mean, we are just very big, of course, so it is a bit depending on what kind of government organization you are. Because some government organizations are much smaller, and then the accessibility of such associations department is different. But for instance, for the wage tax tables, we directly communicate with the people who create the tables, which are actually outside the tax department. They are responsible for that, and we get the rules there. Because everybody who's in between doesn't really know it. They know because they define it. A last thing is that when we create this surface, which we generate, of course, we can use it in different systems. So the income tax surface.
What do you generate?
It's Blaze code, Blaze rules. Yeah, it's a combination. It's the XSD, of course. It's some Java code, some Java blue code, and Blaze. And this surface we use now for the income tax at for three different applications. So 3 different applications already use it for So this is an overview of the process that we follow to come eventually to Blaze Web Services, because that's the way how we deliver it. Although for these tables it's a bit different, because then the output is not a service but the output are those tables. So we have a part in which we analyze the legislation. We have also built a tool for it to register all results of this analysis phase. We have our tool in JetBrains MPS, which we call Aleph, in which we enter rules in our language, RuleSpraak, and we also enter the tests. So we know at this point in time that it's legally correct. So we make sure it's legally correct, and we don't want to do any manual things after that. So we try to automate everything behind it with CI. And eventually, sorry?
I did something there.
Everything there almost. And at the end, we implement those Blaze services either at mainframe or at our Unix environment. This is a list for the projects that we currently are running. The top one, environmental taxes, will be going live somewhere in November. Today we will look at corporation tax, but we have also a new type of rules for data validation. We have rules for invitation for application of income tax, calculation of wage tax, and all kind of other services, all kind of rules that we use for collections, like interest calculations. Yeah.
You provide your services as external services for
No, only internal.
ecosystem?
No, only internal. Except for there is a project in which we start now providing services for Portal, but not really for external parties yet. But it will be there, I guess. There is no doubt that it will be there. Yeah. But it will take some time. Okay. Ready?
Years.
Year or two, maybe. Corporation tax. Let me tell you about that, because that's quite interesting, because we work so closely with these legal specialists. It's a project because of the new regulations about which are called Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive. So it's all the legal specialists know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's about companies to return their profits to other countries where there are no taxes, and the rules try to avoid that. So there are different. Sorry? Without lowering the taxes. Yeah. This is European regulations, so every country needs to implement this. But there are several rules, and we sit together with the specialists to define those rules based on their inputs. And this is one of these legal specialists. It's Ines, and she wrote a very nice thing about what we have achieved there. She knows how to handle her iPhone and Word, and that's it.
So is she actually using MPS herself?
No, and I don't think she will do in the next years. Sorry?
This approach with MPS in any government.
Not that I know of with MPS, except for our benefits department, where we have a similar use of MPS. There we have a very specific language created, which we use to generate a complete C# application, including databases and all.
I just got in contact with the Ministry of Economics, and they are getting them very enthusiastic. So I think over a year we can about this.
Yeah.
The goal is to provide on it to all the government institutions.
So do you foresee using MPS in the European Parliament in 10 years?
They would be foolish if they didn't.
Small step first. Just to give you some idea about how Iris is writing specifications. This is an example of the specifications for this controlled foreign corporations. So they're just writing the formulas, but they're also explicitly mentioned from which part of the legislation and what was the source of these rules. And this forms the basis for our discussions with her. So these are rules, and later in the Word document there's still all kind of test cases. And we use this as a basis for our rules in MPS. And let me show you those rules. Sound. So this is a project in which we work for this corporation tax, and we're looking now at the data model for this corporation tax, and where in the income tax project it was quite a straightforward data model because it was just one long list of data elements. We have here several object types because of course this is about businesses with several activities in foreign countries. So yeah, it's one to many relationships which you will see. And here you see the attributes of the taxable person. And when I go down, as you see here, if, for instance, the result of foreign subsidiaries. The controlled entities in foreign nations, and here the relations between those objects. So that's the way how we model currently those data objects, those data models. To give you an impression how the rules look like. So this is an example of one of the rules. And you can see that it is an attribute. So this is the English translation of it. So this is an attribute of this object of a taxable person. So that's the way how we create those rules. Good. Of course, when we enter it now, when we sit together, then we can discuss the rules. We can even create all kind of test cases. And we create all kind of test cases in which we have input and an expected result. And then we can execute it, and then we can discuss with them the output. But yeah, of course we have an issue because we cannot provide MPS to them. One, because they probably will not be able or not willing to open it. But the other one is also still a technical thing. How do we install this software at their site? Because of course we have a very strict policy on how to implement software at the different workstations in the tax department.
Did you run the test?
I could do, but I don't know what the answer is. So it might turn out that it's not correct. Or in this case, it doesn't do anything.
Oh.
So, okay, sorry.
And in the text that you showed us before,
Yeah.
English translation was not helpful.
No, I just entered it for you. You're completely not interested normally in any English language. So that's, this is only suitable for in this case.
Our communication. You could make different
Of course it's possible to create an English version, but we didn't do it.
The tech was surprisingly helpful to internationalize the language because of the keywords and the aliases. So it's actually something that might be interesting for JetBrains.
Even with models, it could be interesting with different languages. I mean, the meta models and the languages itself. So what did we do? We also created a generator to HTML to be able to send the rules to these people like Diederik, so that they can validate the rules by hand and give feedback.
So they prefer validating the rules by hand over installing MPS
Of course.
and using the tool.
Of course.
I mean, think about it seriously. I'm not trying to be cynical.
No.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
When they validate by hand, they never find any errors, so that's obviously
Okay, yeah, well.
On the other hand, I'm very happy that we can sit in one room with these people. Because normally we would get the Word document and hey, just code it. Oh, you don't understand? I mean, it's there. It cannot be a problem. And then it takes 9 months, and then we can, in the test case, in the tests after 9 months, we discover that there are all kind of problems, of course. Because in this Word document, which is very precisely specify the layout, still errors, of course. I mean, it's impossible not to have errors in the Word document.
So with this document, you sit with them together and go over it, or do you just send it to them and tell them to find errors?
No. I mean, we sit together in front of MPS to discuss the rules. But this is we just.
Two computers, you have MPS, she has the
Yeah.
HTML, and they are just going to do the same thing and fixing it.
Okay, let me go on to the calculation of relationship next. We have a few more minutes before lunch. This is quite a nice project. It started all when I saw the specifications that we publish on our website. And because there's a document on our website which tells you how to calculate the wage tax. And I have never seen a document which is so nice specifying a calculation. I mean, it's one of the nicest specifications that I've ever seen. And Arjen came working at us, and I said, Arjen, I have a nice job for you. Here's the specification. Here is Aleph. I think it's very easy to type it in. I thought it would take him 2 months because he didn't know MPS. And he didn't know Aleph, he didn't know the rule language. He was brand new in our office. And 2 weeks later, he came and he said, I'm finished. And I thought, oh shit. Now I have to do something. So, well, at the end, it resulted in something which is live. It's quite nice. But let me show you what it is. So it's about wage tax tables, and in the early days, people who wrote paychecks, they had to look at this table and go to the line of the income of a certain person, the amount that he paid, and then you can see how much tax needs to be transferred to the tax department. So that's the way it works. And of course, in the early days, it was one table, and you could get a copy at the Ministry of Finance, and then you could fulfill your duties. Those rules get more complicated every year, and currently we have around 800 tables. But still we publish them at our website, and we have some kind of tool to get to the right table based on dimensions that you have. Don't laugh.
Good luck.
The thing is, this is the law. The law says we should provide everybody with these tables.
What's the other
Yeah.
The color.
Yeah. The color white or green tables.
Yeah.
And white is for regular employees, and green is for people who don't work anymore but get pension or something like that. Yeah? Cannot help it.
Apparently it's a technical term for the domain.
For the domain itself. So this is how it looks like. And all, so with this income you get for a certain situation the amount of tax deducted. So there are currently 920 Excel sheets and with around 40 million values. And of course we had a very good tool to create this before we used MPS. And guess what that was? Of course. So this is an example of those of the specifications that we publish every year. You can also find it on our website, and it in detail it explains how you do this calculation. And based on that calculation, based on the document, we made rules in ALEF again. And of course we made sure that it is as traceable as possible. So the same variable names you find back to make sure that everybody knows what it means here. And the nice thing is that before it was specified in Excel, now this is also there, and they are much more quicker in solving problems. Because of course every year it is a problem, and it's not about the rough calculation. I mean, the rough calculation is quite clear, but it's of course always about the roundings. So it's about the last cents in which everybody is making noise. So let me show you how we did that in So it's roughly the same idea, of course. We created all kind of rules based on a data model, all based on this document. But the specific part is, of course, now we don't want to generate a surface with it, a play surface, but we want to use those rules to create such an Excel sheet. So, of course, these Excel sheets all look more or less the same, but are also more or less different. So we have also a language now to specify these Excel sheets. And let me show you the Excel sheets of the green Excel sheet, the specification of the green Excel sheet. And it says the green Excel sheets should be combined for each of the following dimensions. And that means that this is an abstract specification for a whole bunch of Excel sheets. Okay. So it multiplies because this green Excel sheet should be there for different countries and for different periods and for different situations. And that results in this enormous list. And I can now also click on one of these Excel sheets, and then it's generating the Excel sheet. No, it's generating not the Excel sheet, it's generating separated
And Excel sheet.
and the Excel sheet and a PDF document, because we want to publish all those variants. I will not press that button because it takes too long, but believe me, it is there.
You also use those during the automated build because you don't want to do that manually.
I will show you how we do it in the build. Yeah. Because the thing is, of course, this was previously. I show you how it worked previously. So this is the way how we did it previously. So somebody at the Ministry of Finance defined those rules and defined sample tables. And then somebody, a Visual Basic expert, created the program in Excel. Created the program in Excel and generated PDFs, Excel, and separated values. He did quite a good job because it performed quite well.
So we used Visual Basic to generate PDFs.
Respect. But he did it at home. So we have a lot of time at home. So what did we do? We took the same input from the Ministry of Finance, but we made the specifications in Aleph, and then we generate those tables in our CI environment using Jenkins, and then produced all those files also. So here we don't use Blaze Web Service because that's also too slow. So we integrated Blaze in the build, so we directly can access the Blaze code to make sure it performed well. So how does that work? When you check in now, it takes the sources from Git. It builds a solution. It builds a Blaze repository. It builds a small Java program to generate a table, and then it generates all tasks, all 800 tasks to create 800 tables, and it generates those tables in parallel. And it takes now only 47 minutes to generate all those tables in 3 flavors. So that's quite nice because at what we call Prinsjesdag, it's the third Tuesday in September. The ministers decide then about the new percentages which needs to be used in these tables, and of course the next day all the software developers want to have the new data. So well, we can manage now in one day to have new tables. And here you see the result then of the artifacts in the build. And the nice thing is, of course, that now we have these rules, we can do all kinds of other things with those rules. Because we can, of course, now also generate a Blaze service with it. So we can have a screen like this to execute a single calculation. But we also use the rules already for somebody else who had a very specific problem related to this. We created an extra rule group, and then we helped him for his specific problem in a few days, because we had the rules already. So that's, well, you can reuse now the specifications, and that's very nice. And that was what I wanted to tell you about the Dutch tax office. Any questions?
There was a question previously from somebody who said, why don't you do this at the stage where you create the laws? Is anything moving in that direction?
We are moving in that direction. But, well, that just takes time. And we will be there, but yeah, it takes time.
Similar question regarding to making this available to legislators to actually get a prediction on how the changes in law will affect individual people. Because you said you have tests, so that should we even do a whole table on effect.
There are ideas about that. Still, we didn't manage yet to really execute those plans. But there are plans to do things like that also together with our legislators.
I even had a fantasy to implement the rules on the graphical card. Then you could go calculate the whole of Holland in just a few seconds or minutes. And then you could do a lot of what if. So I imagined the ministers sitting there saying, well, what if?
Just like the process to GitLab push requests and just put others.
But actually the process of making legislation and specifying it and checking whether it's correct are quite different. Because for politicians it's not a question of whether they have very clearly specified what they want. They need to take into account all kinds of political motives and satisfying certain groups of people. And, so it's a completely different game than specification and system. So
That's one of the reasons that they are not so eager to do these kind of things, because it gets too much clear what is going on. Yeah, and that's not always as useful as we think that it is. Other questions?
I'm just curious. How do you check the correctness of the calculation? Do you have any if test sample way to check the results of that calculation? If anything goes wrong.
We have tests for every rule or every rule set, and so we test really at the level of specifications.
Of the rules.
Yeah, and of course then you only know that the complete thing is consistent. So still somebody needs to verify the test and verify the rule. But well, that's the way how we do it. And after we generate, we also test again with the same tests, just to make sure the generation is okay. And we go even a step further. If we change our software, we generate code again, and we make sure that all the old cases also run with this new software. Just to be 100% sure that it does still the same as it did yesterday and the year before.
If you change something in the next year, let's say a tax rate, then you have to adapt probably manually lots of tests.
Yeah, right.
And you do that manually in software, or do you automate that somehow?
We have some tools to support you with that, but still a lot of work.
Okay.
But we have all kind of tools to make life easier at that point.
But you have also a matter of writing your tests so that independent.
Current year plus one instead of 2020.
Right. So you can make tests that are valid for multiple years. And also, when you have production data that one is protected, then of course if you change the regulations, then that data doesn't work anymore, but all the green cases can still be taken over to the next year if they're just
they're not green for a wrong reason.
Yeah, so we look at it could be the case, but
You can automatically adjust test cases, but then what are you testing? So you have to have a fiscalist or a specialist.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But imagine that you didn't have a tool.
No, I agree. Of course. But in terms of optimizing things even further, you
can
go want to be clever about how to avoid that as much as possible.
And also what we do is we have production cases so that we ensure that all the intermediate values that are being calculated are also green. So then we can make much smaller test cases that just test the function of the single rule. And that's a lot easier to maintain than these very large test cases.
Because you test on very different levels, but it's also because we have the ability to check the coverage of the tests.
Yeah.
That when we implement something new, then I kept going back to the lawyers for, look, you didn't cover this, and look, you didn't cover that, because work is right? But now we can let you see that it's not complete.
Coverage testing is very interesting also when you have the legal specialist at the table. Because they can immediately say, oh yeah, that's what we forgot. But they can also immediately say, yeah, but this is not a relevant case, so it doesn't have to be just. But
It's still a lot of work, and at least now the work is at the business
And the criteria when you're done. I mean, so